Alright, hello everyone, welcome to our lesson. Today we're going to look at the impact of the New Deal. So here are our objectives and standards: to explain the decision to include African Americans in the Roosevelt administration, to summarize the changes brought about for Native Americans because of the New Deal, to analyze how the New Deal affected organized labor, and to understand how New Deal programs helped and hurt the environment. And if you want to take a look at those standards, please. Okay, a vocabulary preview: parity. And I want you to think about this. How can government assistance help establish a stable society? Sorry about that. So how can government assistance help establish a stable society? What can government do to help create a society that is peaceful, where everyone is happy, and things like that? And our essential question: what was the impact of the New Deal on Americans and society? Okay, so the New Deal and women. So women still face many of the same discriminations they faced in the workplace prior to the New Deal. Again, jobs are going to be given to men before they're given to women, and women are going to face lower wages. Even though if they do find a job, they're going to face lower wages in those jobs. However, a lot of women continued to work and find jobs when they could. And another note here is this is a picture of Frances Perkins, and she was the first female to hold a cabinet position in a presidential administration. She was the Secretary of Labor, and she was very useful, and she helped create the Social Security Administration and other labor reforms. And FDR also appointed other females to important positions such as judges. So females did make other advances too, besides just in the workforce. So African Americans in the New Deal. So African Americans saw their influence grow during the New Deal. This was in partially due to the fact of Franklin Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, kind of pushed him to include African Americans in his administration and to kind of help civil rights out a little bit. But either way, many were appointed to key positions within Roosevelt's administration. But despite his appointments to government positions, FDR did little to improve racial issues, especially in the South, and African Americans continued to face segregation and violence. So what about Mexican Americans and Native Americans in the New Deal? Again, the New Deal did very little to improve the lives of Mexican Americans, especially those who worked in agriculture. Again, this is not to say it didn't help them out with some other areas, but a lot of them still face some segregation and discrimination. But with Native Americans, they did gain some independence back and were allowed to return to some of their tribal rules or rules they'd followed in the past through their ancestry in some areas. So labor unions in the New Deal. So due to the New Deal, labor unions and their members prospered. Working conditions improved and bargaining rights were increased. Now again, there were some labor disputes that happened during FDR's administration, but for the most part, laborers and labor unions supported FDR and his administration. Okay, so FDR and the economy. So Roosevelt also increased the involvement of the federal government in the economy. And we still have these two things today. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC, helped protect Americans' money in banks by promising to back up. Remember, during the Great Depression, people lost a lot of money in the banks because the banks weren't able to provide that money back to the public. So the FDIC insures a certain amount of money for all Americans, even to this day, in banks, so that way we don't have bank runs and bank closures like we had during the Great Depression. We also have the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, which protects and investigates investments, such as like in the stock market, to make sure that things are stable and legal that way. Roosevelt and labor relations. The New Deal sought to help American workers. Legislation established better wages and improved working conditions. And the National Labor Relations Board worked to solve disputes between unions and employers. And again, we still have the National Labor Relations Board today, which still does the same thing. So Social Security. So a legacy of the New Deal was protecting its citizens and helping those in need. And again, we have Social Security today. The Social Security system helped those in need with assistance. The Social Security Act provides old age insurance, unemployment compensation, and aid to disabled and American families with children. So again, this is still true today. This is why we have a Social Security card and Social Security number is when this starts to come about. And but again, Social Security is there to provide assistance to those who need it. Speaking of assistance, we can also talk about agricultural assistance. The New Deal also helped recover agriculture in the United States. The government set quotas on food and wheat production to control surplus, and farmers received loans based on parity, there's our vocab word, or their income based on the surplus of crops. So finally, the New Deal and the environment. FDR also worked to protect the environment. The Civilian Conservation Corps planted trees and established hiking trails. And the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, helped control flooding and generate electricity, along with jobs for that matter. But still, there were some government programs and institutions that caused pollution through their programs, so it was not a perfect system. Okay, wrapping it up here. The New Deal helped different Americans of different backgrounds. We talked about African Americans, women, Mexican Americans, and Native Americans, and how it helped them, or maybe it didn't help them as much as they would have liked to have. FDR also supported labor and social reforms. Remember, we talked about better working conditions, labor unions could bargain, the Social Security Act, which allowed for assistance to people who needed it. And finally, the New Deal benefited agriculture and the environment. The New Deal helped farmers when they were struggling with some crops, and also helped the environment by protecting the environment, planting trees, or stopping flooding. Okay, so that's all I have for this lesson. So just make sure you answer the questions, and I'll talk to you later.